more comedy for me, please? Because some of these movies are real serious.
Sure.
Or
I think next up
randomly
on the
randomly
docket.
Barbie. I'm like, why Barbie?
Oh, why Barbie, my friend? You were not here when we went down that rabbit hole. We
Yeah.
started that rabbit hole about a year and a half ago now. And the main reason, if anyone's curious, and then we'll get back. Poppin' y'all, welcome to Post Finale. I am your host, Ankit Madira. I'm an actor and a musician who has not seen a lot of films, so to make my friends happy and potentially provide a new perspective on some popular films, I am on a quest to change that. I'm not on this quest alone, however. This week, I am joined by streamer and new editor of this very podcast, Ant Servion. I messed up your name immediately.
That's fine. We'll keep it rolling.
Ant, welcome. How are you? I'm doing
Hi.
great with names.
Oh, that's fine. I have to edit your videos. I know all the flubs. I know everything that goes behind the scenes.
You know everything that goes wrong.
Yes, and I fix them.
He does. He makes me sound good. And
No, yes.
I appreciate you for that. But yes, welcome onto the show officially and also to the team.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. And we've been working together for a few months now. But yeah, I was talking to our mutual friend Steven, who
Yes.
Shameless plug. I also go co-host Flip the Scripts, and that should be coming back soon because we took a small hiatus. But we'll be back with Flip the Scripts soon. But anyway, he told me that you loved Gladiator.
Oh, he was like, "Have you seen them?" I'm like, "Bro, I remember as a kid. I don't remember watching it in theaters. I think I did. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember renting it from Blockbuster because my family used to do a movie night, and that was like one of my favorite movies. And like Russell Crowe has been one of my favorite actors ever since.
Nice. So you definitely like have seen this multiple times over
Oh
the years.
yeah, definitely. I gave it a rewatch this morning, and I was like, "This is fine."
This is fine. Yeah, I have been watching it in a way that I don't recommend people watch it, but I mean, it is surprisingly fun when you pause it, because you notice so many tiny little things. But yeah, lovely. So that's how you got into the film and everything. Just was a little kid, and
Oh
your
yeah.
parents let you watch the R-rated film as a little kid?
Yes. I mean, I don't know why they rented it, but we always did a movie night, and they chose the movie, so I had no options.
Oh, so
Yeah,
you didn't even have a say in it.
I don't have a say in it. It was just popular
Okay.
movie. I mean, I remember the few movies I remember. I remember watching The Mummy was another one. That one was wild. So we watched that twice actually. I remember that as a kid because I hated that movie. Gladiator was a major one. I remember renting that, and then we always had a movie night every Friday. So there's like a ton of movies that I'll probably like if I ever look through a library and I see it, I'll be like, oh, I remember watching.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was not my upbringing. I mean, we did like movie night, but whenever it was movie night, it was never Western cinema movie night.
Oh.
It was always Bollywood or Tollywood or some form of Indian movie.
Oh no, Blockbuster was a godsend. I remember when Netflix came out. I'm dating myself with this, Jesus Christ. When Netflix came out, and then the movies would stop coming because you got to order the movies online. You got to order which movies you want, and the movies would stop coming. My dad would be like, "Why did the movies stop coming?" And we're like, "Oh right, we have to reset our list."
Fair. No, I remember Blockbuster like a fair bit and going in and out of Blockbuster a lot as a kid. But yeah, anyway, jumping back into the film, where we left off is we've just met Proximo, and he's given a beautiful speech about, gladiators, we salute you. And this is where we learn, hey, look, Maximo's going to become a gladiator. Whoop-de-doo. So we jump back in, and we are training, and we see people placing bets, it seems like. I don't know. It was chaotic.
Yeah. I think the Emperor set up like 100 days of the games.
Not yet. That happens.
Not yet. That's later. Okay.
This is
this is when it's the small time. Yeah. So back then, it was a form of entertainment. That's what people did. You would go to the games and watch the games, and that was like the smaller cities, and then the bigger city was the. But yeah, it Bad Bunny, which is wild to me because I thought everyone was poor.
No. Apparently, people have money to gamble,
Oh
but
yeah.
they're adding like colors to these people, which is why I thought it was training.
Hmm.
Because they call out for our Spaniard, Maximo, and he
Hmm.
goes up against Big Muscle Boy, who I'm gonna name Muscles.
Okay.
And that's just what we're calling him for the rest of the film. He gets name dropped later. It might
Hmm.
be in the next episode, technically. But he does get name dropped. Muscles is by far a more interesting name.
Hmm.
So, he, you know, just drops his sword, not Muscles. Maximo drops his sword, and
Right.
then Muscles just smiles and hits him in the gut. And I'm like, okay, is he just gonna start fighting when he realizes this might be a way for like revenge against the Emperor and like revenge against Commodus? I'm trying to figure out like when he's gonna start fighting back and like why he isn't fighting back.
Yes and no, because I mean, you got to understand his wife and kid had died recently. He was
Yeah.
captured, and they don't know who he is at this moment in time. They don't know exactly who he is. So he's debating on: do I still fight to live? Do I just let myself be taken? What do I do in this situation?
Do I just die?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly. Which is
yeah.
a big conundrum. You could tell throughout the whole movie he's like questioning himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of like the big overarching question for his character. It feels
Hmm.
like, do I live? Do I die? What do I do? And the trainer sees this, and then he not only takes a hit to the gut, he takes a hit to the arm, and just as Muscles goes for the neck, the trainer steps in and says his time will come.
Hmm.
And then later that night, someone asks, why he doesn't fight, and I think it's his friend whose name I don't remember, but I think I've just been calling him Bestie.
Yeah,
Um,
he's actually in the new movie. I believe
oh,
so. I think so. I haven't. If I remember correct, I have to rewatch the trailer, but I think he takes the guy's place and becomes rich, which is wild. But and then I realized in the movie, yeah, you never see what happens to him.
okay. Yeah, fair. I haven't seen the new movie. This is why we're doing this movie,
Oh yeah, yeah.
actually.
I still need to watch it.
Yeah. I know that it's out,
Hmm.
and I know Pedro Pascal's in it.
Yeah, which
That's
is
all I got
random.
for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Pedro's an incredible actor.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
can
yeah.
do anything.
Ever
He
since The
can
Last of
play
Us.
he can play a fox, and he can play a gladiator in the same month. um, but yeah, so he just says, his time will come, and
Mm.
then so the best friend's like, why don't you fight? He shows him a tattoo, a sign of the gods,
Yeah, yeah.
is what they say, and then I got a little confused. Was he like hiding it or like trying to get rid of it? Like, what was he doing
If I
on
remember
his
correctly,
arm?
he was hiding it. I think where he comes from, like mainly telling where he's from. I don't remember exactly this whole situation because I mean I watched it in bits and pieces. Like I watched the tail end. I was like, I don't know where we're at. But pretty much it's like going back to like why they saved him is because slaves were expensive and they wanted them to die in the ring versus die in training because it's
No, I get
entertainment.
that. I get that. But like he had his tattoo and it almost looked like he was like kind of trying to peel the skin away on the
Hmm.
tattoo, like cut that out or something.
It could have been. I believe it was the mark of a slave,
Okay. And
if
that
I
might
remember
have been
correctly.
what
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
doing. Okay. Um, cool. Cause yeah, I just couldn't tell what was going on
yeah. Hmm.
because it was just very dark in the scene as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a very quick scene as well.
Yeah, and I was trying to decipher what you doing, buddy? Why you cutting your arm open?
Hmm.
Um, because he doesn't talk. Maximus
No,
doesn't talk that
no, no.
entire scene. He just sits there.
He's very silent for most of it. It isn't towards like the middle of the film where he like finds his motive,
Hmm.
which I don't want to spoil. So he'll find his motive eventually.
Okay. I don't know if I know his motive currently. I might. I don't remember.
You
No,
should. Oh no.
I know half the motive.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah, yeah,
figure it
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. You'll see what I'm talking about. It'll be a moment where it clicks for you, and you're like, oh, okay.
Okay, sure. So we then cut immediately to the first battle, and Busty and Muscles are also there. And Muscle says, "The gods favor you," and I was like, "Aw, what a nice turnaround!" And then I hit play, and then he continues, "Red is the gods' color. You will need their help today." Oh, Bestie's just here to like mess with them, or
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Muscles is just here to mess with them. And I was like, "Oh, that
Mhm.
tracks a lot more based on the introduction we just had to this guy." I was very confused for a moment. I was like, "Why is he being so kind and lovely?"
Yeah, 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 yeah. You gotta understand, like they're slaves and they're there to just fight.
Yep, that
But
is
him having, like we see in the beginning of the movie, he has a general's background. Like he is a full blood soldier. Like he's been a soldier his whole life. So it kind of like fighting is like the fighting that they do at the ring is beneath him.
it's almost what it feels like.
Yeah, yeah.
And the conflict that I kind of feel and what I'm reading is not just that it's beneath him, but is just I'm not gonna do this because it's barbaric. Like you're
Hmm.
not fighting for a purpose almost.
Yeah,
Like you're not fighting for anything other
yeah.
than the sake of fighting.
It's for the sake of entertainment, which is
Right.
wild.
Which is I feel like why he's like, no, I don't like this because like I know what fighting is truly like and how horrific it can be.
Hmm.
So yeah. So we're at the battle, and Proximo says a beautiful speech here, and he's like, "Some of you think you won't fight, some of you can't fight. They all say until you're out there," and then he pulls out his sword, and then he just goes, "Cast this into another man's flesh, and they will applaud and love you forever. You may begin to love them. Ultimately, we're all dead men. We can't decide how, but we can decide how we meet that end. In a way, we are remembered as men." Whew. And he delivered it incredibly powerful, which took like, 2.5 minutes. I ain't doing
Oh
that
yeah,
the rest
yeah.
of my incredible scene right there. Just such like talk about motivational speech.
Oh well, I mean, you gotta understand there were politicians pretty much, and they have to entertain the crowd. But
Yeah.
they for I always love the language in this movie, the way they talk, the way they hold themselves. It's incredible sometimes. That's why that, and now being older, the acting was just spot on. Like the acting was really good.
Yeah. The acting's really, really good in this film.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean just the care that he has in those words and like just especially in just that last sentence, we can't decide how, but we can decide how we meet that end.
Hmm.
Just his shift in his tone when he hits the butt, like to really like just hit that nail in the head of like, look, at the end of the day, yes, we are all dead.
Hmm.
And it's just like, yeah, like that's just a fact of life.
Oh
We're
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
die. Right?
Like
But
it's like
then
it's like I tell everyone, nothing's guaranteed in life but death and taxes.
yay. Woohoo! Happy seal claps.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, oh, it was just such a beautiful, beautiful scene right there by the
Mhm.
actor whose name I do not know and I did not look up because I
I'm
really
terrible with actors' names. Like the only one I know is Russell Crowe. Like the black friend is familiar. Like I should know that actor, but it's like they just slipped my mind.
that's valid. I am trying to see if I can find the cast real quick, but it ain't loading. So no. No, that's not what I want. All right, the cast. Proximo Oliver Reed.
Mm.
Yes, yes, that is what it is. Some of his other roles include being in Oliver as Bill Sykes, The Brood, and The Four Musketeers.
I've,
Milady's Revenge, specifically.
I've seen none of those movies.
Yeah, I have seen. Actually, that's a lie. I have not seen Oliver. I need to see Oliver. I should see Oliver.
So what's this podcast for?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, that's legitimately why this exists. It's gotten to a point where, like, I was hanging out with one of my friends, and they are now also realizing this because Steven's a big reason of why this podcast exists. Because Steven
Mhm.
got so mad at me every single time we had a conversation about film. And there was another friend who we were talking about something, and then it was like, oh, we were talking about Little Shop of Horrors, and then a lyric was different in something, and they were like, oh, it's the movie version. And I'm like, oh, I've never seen the movie. And they're like, insulting. And I'm like, why are you surprised at this point? You know I haven't seen anything. You know I had seen this show once before I directed it. Like, what do you want from me?
There's some movies you've done, like Boogie Nights, for example, and I'm all like, I've never seen this movie. I have no clue what you guys are talking about. But what's the actor's name? Mark Wahlberg's in it. That's cool. I didn't know that. Like I should give this movie a shot. Like, there's some movies you've done. I'm like, I've never seen these movies before in my life. I'm like, can you
Never
do like
seen.
Scary Movie or like Friday or something like that?
Yeah, I can do that. We'll
Like
add it to the list.
more comedy for me, please, because some of these
Yeah.
movies are real serious.
Sure.
Or
I think next one
randomly
on the
randomly
docket.
Barbie. I'm like, why Barbie?
Oh, why Barbie, my friend? You were not here when we went down that rabbit hole. We
Yeah.
started that rabbit hole about a year and a half ago now. And the main reason, if anyone's curious, and then we'll get back to Gladiator, main reason we continue on this rabbit hole is that we emailed the director after we did the first one. And
Oh,
they said
okay.
that their favorite one to work on was the fifth one.
We have to build up to that. Okay,
And so we were like, we gotta get to the fifth one. Like, we were like, that was the director's favorite one. We have to get to it. Like, we gotta build to that one. But you can't skip like 2 through 4. Like that
Oh yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
work.
yeah,
What if
yeah,
there's
exactly.
lore? What if there's the
It's like
prison?
scary movies. What was that movie called? Terrifier came out, and one of my friends. I'm not a fan of scary movies. I hate scary movies. I can't do it. Like, I can watch it because from my home, but I can't go to the theater and watch it. But
Mm.
we're watching Terrifiers, and I was asking my friend. He just watched the third one, and I'm like, "Do you have to watch 1 through 3?" And he's all like, "Yeah, there's lore." I'm like, "How does a scary movie have lore?" And he's like, "No, they just have lore now." And I'm like, "This is happening because of this and this." I'm like, "I have no clue what you're talking about, but I'm never gonna watch this movie. But it's cool to hear."
I think
I
I
watched
just watched Scary Movie for the first time.
which one? The oh the first one.
Yeah, it has the Scream mask, right?
Yeah. Where
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
making
yeah.
fun of Scream, is their trope.
Yeah, they're doing that, and then you know, what is it? Like the kids in school are all making fun of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Then yeah,
yeah,
I just watched that one like 2
yeah,
weeks
yeah,
ago.
yeah,
On Halloween. Yeah.
yeah.
Haha, I watched one. I don't know what happens in any of the other ones. Anyway,
Yeah,
what are we talking about? Gladiator.
got
That's
it.
what we're talking about. Yeah. So Gladiator. Incredible speech. Maximus seems to have, been riled up by this speech and is like, okay,
Mhm.
you know what? You are right. I'm not gonna go out a coward. That is not who I am. I'm not gonna do this. At least that's how I felt. Like, if I was playing that character, I feel like that would have been a little bit of like my motivation there when listening to that speech of like, okay, like no, I'm not gonna go out as a coward. I've never done that. Like, I am a war general. I
Mhm.
can't go out without putting up the fight.
A fight, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so the crowd raucous, the music builds, the men line up ready to go. The party has started, and Maximus dramatically enters the frame because drama, and the
Mhm.
battle begins. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm slightly confused off the bat with the whole gladiator thing because I apparently had it wrong. um, it seems like we're fighting knights, peasants, sure. Why are some of them chained together and some of them are not chained together? And like, why are Maximus and Bestie chained together, but then they're fighting like soldiers with
Mhm.
armor? They have no armor, and then there's like a minotaur that Muscles takes care of. I'm so confused.
So there's a lot that goes on during this scene. Even as a kid, I was confused, and it made me want to learn about this shit because I'm gonna bleep this out anyways. Um, it made me want to learn about all of it. So what it was is that there was multiple games set up for each of the slaves. So pretty much they pit one group against another group. They're all hand selected. My understanding is technically they're all slaves unless they're considered free, but technically they're all slaves and they're all pitted against each other.
And
Now
it's like
it's
slaves of different people.
yes. So it's Prismo slaves against. They never reveal who the other people's slaves are, but they just make them that like okay, they're established and they're unknown names.
Cool.
So that's why they have the armor and all this and that and the weaponry, and they try to make it like entertainment. So they chain each other up, but they make it like kind of fair that it's a 2v1. But yeah, that the scene's a little chaotic for my taste, especially after rewatching it. I'm like, oh, this is a forgettable scene in my opinion, but it shows
Really
that
is.
it shows that Maximus wants to fight again, which is the whole point of everything.
Right. That's the gist. Here are a few fun little things that I noticed, and then we'll move on because there's a whole lot that happens, and it is a scene with just a lot of cuts back and forth, back and forth, and it builds like that's how you build the chaos in filmmaking. Like it's supposed to be chaotic. It's supposed to feel chaotic. They got that through. And they got the message of Maximo wants to fight. Great, we've understood that. Like we can move on. Storytelling wise, they did a great job. But in terms of this podcast, I'm nitpicky. So the field is littered with bodies. And I mean, like, there's a lot going on when we say a lot. There's a man with the mace. At one point, we have a gong sound from hitting a shield. I laughed out loud at that one. I enjoyed that one.
Hollywood sound effects. Yeah.
We're using our chains as weapons. So, like in the 2v1, because they're chained up together, they use it as weapons. Muscles kills a guy with a stick. And by that, I mean he picks the guy up. There are sticks pointing out of like the ring. And he just kind of throws him and he hits a stick and dies. I don't know if he got impaled or if it was just the sheer force of muscles throwing a man up into the air. I don't know.
I want to say it's both, but again, like like you said, they're
it cut away too fast for me.
Yeah. They're building it. That and there's a scene in. If for anyone who sees this is actually trivia for this movie. There's a scene where a carriage turns over and you can see the canister, like you can see the canister where it's pushing out the air so it pushes the dust up. You can literally see when there's a scene in the movie, and I didn't know this about this way later. But yeah, there's some like I mean this movie came out in 2000.
2000.
Yeah. So they did a little movie magic to hide a few of the things, but there's one scene that always sticks, and I caught it today when I was rewatching it. I was like, oh, I forgot about this, and I'm like, it's right there, and I'm like, damn, thank God for pausing because before in theaters you would just watch it once, and the only time you would watch it again is if you had to go to theaters again. There's no streaming, there's no either, or you rented a Blockbuster and you had like I said, I watched it as a family night. So a lot of this stuff was well hidden because of Hollywood. But yeah, like I feel like the deaths are kind of exaggerated, but again, I think they couldn't get away with much. Like nowadays where it's like everything's gory and brutal, like they can show everything now or they can show pools of blood and it's like okay, that's fine. But nowadays they have to be careful to not get a certain I think it's like adult rating or whatever they're avoiding back then.
I don't know. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously they're different, but sometimes I feel like the stories from back then are better than the stories now, because back then you had to have the story, not just the gore.
Oh yeah, back then it was.
You had movies that was all just gore as well, but yeah. Anyway, Maximo is fighting a guy with the spear, and he lands an attack, and then he knocks the spear out, and then they speared the guy. And then they use the chain to knock him out and I guess kill him. The people love it. Woohoo! They cheer for Maximo and Bestie. And I'm assuming the others because they aren't dead. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're still around or not. But I mean,
so the crazy part about this scene was that the focus was on Maximus and his best friend and then the muscles guy because
Yeah.
technically he's seen as an enemy to Maximus for probably like this is like the only time in the film.
This is
But
they're friends after this.
yeah. So but the focus is on them three pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I feel like everyone else is irrelevant. Like no offense, for as many slaves as Prismo had, and for as many people were seen in the scene, it's just the main focus were around those three.
Yeah, for sure. And then it's just like, ooh, and it's a really cool transition because then they transition from the cheering crowd of the stadium into the cheering crowd at not Commodus? That sounds wrong. Is it? No, Commodus.
Yeah, you had it right.
Commodus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roman.
Rome. We're in Rome. Yeah, we're in Rome. We're here for the inauguration thingamabob.
A lot of uses.
Yeah. Look,
For people who don't know, that's from Hercules, by the way.
It's a good joke. I just when I take my notes, I shorten his name to Com.
Oh, okay.
COMM.
Yeah.
So I always forget that last bit is Commodus.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so he enters in, and one of the Senate people, I don't know, and this will be a common theme. I might say a name. I will do my best to get it right. I will probably be wrong because they're all the same.
Mm-hmm. They're very similar.
They're very, very similar characters. And so I'm just like, I'm slowly putting together who they are. And also, they haven't been on screen much.
No,
we haven't seen a whole lot of them. So one of them says he enters Rome like a conquering hero. What has he conquered? And someone else is just like, give him time. I think he can do well. And I'm just like, spoiler alert, he won't. And the first guy's just like, for Rome or for you? And it was like, ooh, powerful. So we can already sense that the Senate, unhappy in this moment, they do not like Commodus, and they don't like that he is the new emperor. Now, a little boy runs forward, gives his mom a hug, and Rome greets a new emperor. And Falco says that Rome and her loyal subjects welcome you. And then Commodus responds with, the loyal subjects weren't too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Did he just buy a bunch of slaves to fill the streets to make it look like he was popular?
I believe so. So you gotta understand, he took power after his father had died.
Right.
And,
well, after he murdered him.
Yeah. But again, like, he wasn't popular with the people to start with. Even with the armies, it kind of hints at the beginning where he shows up late, or he's all like questioning his father's health and this and that. And then when he loses this, he goes kind of crazy when he realizes he's not next in line, or his father doesn't want him to be the next Caesar.
Right.
But it shows a lot of the darker sides of the politics, especially with the senators and the Senate. Again, I don't remember if the question's been brought up yet, where he's all like, "Do you want an emperor or do you want a senate? Which one do you prefer?"
Oh yeah, that happens in like 2 minutes.
Or that happens at the very beginning, which it carries over, especially when Commodus takes over.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to control everything, and the Senate doesn't want that, which is why they kind of like he hasn't done anything, and it's like, well, give him time, and it's like, well, they can already see he falters as a leader.
Yeah. On that beautiful note, we're going to take a quick intermission, and then we'll be back to learn about the Senate. Woohoo! Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale. I hope you are all enjoying this episode, and if you want to gain access to more bonus content, like access to my notes and access to some of the tier lists that I make, and help suggest films and things like that, all of that can be done over at our Patreon, and that can be found at patreon.com/coopforge. So that's patreon.com/CO_OPFORGE. Signing up for any of the tiers gets you different types of bonus content depending on the tier that you sign up for, and a shout out here on the show for every patron that signs up. It really means the world to us, and it helps us grow this show and helps us be able to put the money back into this show to make it a better experience for you, the listeners. That is our entire goal here at Co-op Forge. So thank you all so much if you are considering doing this. Now, if you want to help the show in a non-monetary way, that is fantastic as well. You can do so by just talking about us and sharing it with a friend. Just reach out to a friend and be like, hey, you love movies, or hey, you need an excuse to watch more movies. Check out this show called Post Finale. The host is silly, he's an actor, he's confused most of the time, gets a lot of guesses wrong, but overall it's a lovely time and some interesting discussions about some iconic films. I think you'll really enjoy it. It really does help. And be sure to talk about us on social media and follow us on social media. That really helps out a lot as well. If you're looking for the show, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Post Finale Pod. And then you can also find us at Co-op Forge on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And that's at Co-op Forge, at CO_OPFORGE. And we post content not just from Post Finale, but from the other shows here on Co-op Forge as well. So that includes Flip the Scripts, and that includes Seattle Across the Pond. So be sure to follow both of those channels. Again, it's at Post Finale Pod and at Co-op Forge, CO_OPFORGE. But just thank you so much for listening to this episode. Wherever you are, if you're enjoying the episode, if you're listening on YouTube, please please hit subscribe. It really does help us out. If you're listening on a podcast app, that's great as well. It doesn't matter to us where you're listening. We're just so thankful that you're listening. But if you're listening on a podcast app, please leave a rating. It really does help us out. Please leave a review and hit that follow button. You can also turn on notifications both on YouTube and on the podcast apps just to be notified when new episodes come out. It really does mean a lot that you are all listening to these episodes, and thank you all so much. So let's get back to the episode without further ado. So we're back, and Bacchus says that Rome rejoices in his return. Many matters that require your attention. He was the one that doesn't like him, from what I remember. And
Yes.
maybe it was someone else. Yeah,
a lot of people don't like him.
A lot of people don't like him. Bacchus is one of them.
Yeah.
You know, they need his guidance, and the senators have made a series of protocols to begin addressing the many problems in the city, beginning with the sanitation for the Greek quarter. To combat the plague that has already started there. Fair enough. Like, hey, plague has happened. Let's contain it. Commodus couldn't care less. He's just sitting there spinning his sword. And
he wants to make a name for himself, and he's like, this is beneath me.
This is beneath me. Blah. And he shushes him and says that the problem isn't that. Father spent time in his study, books, philosophy, spent the twilight hours reading scrolls from Senate, and all the while the people were forgotten. Gracchus, who, another one that doesn't like him, says that the Senate is for the people, sire, chosen from among the people to speak for the people. Commodus doubts that the people eat as well as he does, or has as many mistresses as Gaius does. What did Gaius do? Why is poor Gaius getting a stray bullet over here? Like, what? Like, poor Gaius. He was just sitting in the meeting. What did he do?
I mean, like I said, that the Senate was new. I don't know. I'm like,
I don't
losing
think
my
the Senate
history.
was new at this point.
No, but like in my history point, like it was kind of a concept that was unheard of. I don't know my history too well. I don't remember. I used to know all this crap. But yes, he wants to address the people while Comus pretty much wants to conquer the world. Put that in quotations.
Yeah.
He wants to have his name everywhere. He wants not to be foreshadowed by pretty much by his father. It's pretty much the he has a chip on his shoulder. But then again, I think he was trying to divert the attention away from, all right, I want to do this. And then they're like, well, you can't. I'm like, well, why should he have that? Like, why does he does that?
Right. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean it's definitely interesting. But he wants a name for himself, and
Hmm.
he wants to do it his way.
Hmm.
Um, and Gracchus calls his bluff and says, "Oh, well, would you be so good to teach us out of his own extensive experience?" And Commodus does retort in an interesting way. He says, "Call it love. The people are my children, and I their father, and I will put them to my bosom and embrace them." And Bacchus chimes in and asks if he's ever embraced someone dying of plague. And I'm like, yes, Bacchus, go in for the sassy kill.
Freaking cheap shot, cheap shot.
Hey, Bacchus saw his opportunity and he took
Yeah,
it.
yes, he did.
Commodus
Yes.
turns and is like, no.
Mhm.
But if you interrupt me again, you shall. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, you got some anger issues.
Mhm.
His sister comes in and is like, my brother is tired. Leave it with me and he'll do whatever Rome requires. And it's like, all right, cool. Bacchus tells her that her lightest touch commands obedience. Again, just showing what Caesar originally said. If only she had been born a male, she would have been an incredible Caesar.
Mhm.
But she wasn't. And so she has to pretty much run the empire
Behind
from
the scenes.
behind the scenes.
Well, which I mean, back then that's how the world worked. The men did everything, and the women just bred children.
It was either that
Mhm.
or it was the men were the face of everything, the women actually ran everything.
Oh well. After seeing this movie and rewatching it, I agree with that statement. I really do. I really agree with that statement.
Just the men got the credit, the women did the work. It was
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was a crappy deal.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. So Bacchus says, thank you, and the sister goes to Commodus and he's throwing a, hissy fit about who are they to lecture me? And she's like, well, the Senate has its uses. And he's like, no, it should just be you and me. And she's just like, no, there is always Venus in it. Did I miss something in my history? Venus, Rome? Am I missing a connection?
I think Venus was a god. I have to double check.
Venus was a Roman god?
I believe
I
so.
know my Greek gods better than Roman.
Probably. Like how
Um,
I typed in Venus and then the the planet came up. Um
I did type in Venus goddess.
yeah.
Um, the most original creation of the Roman pantheon? Uh, yeah, but which one is she? I'm so confused. Oh, associated with love, beauty, desire, sex, fertility, and prosperity.
I think she's represented the prosperity part. Because you got
Yeah.
to understand her the father was a peaceful, and he took more pride in that. I had 4 years of peace versus them going to war and trying to expand as much as possible. And
Yeah. Her Greek counterpart is Aphrodite, for
yeah,
context.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, okay, sure. Venus, lovely. Hi. Rome has changed. It takes an emperor to rule an empire, and he flaunts himself up into a large chair. Honestly, very well acted by Joaquin Phoenix. Like incredibly well done. And like the flaunty walk of like I'm still pissed off, but I'm still a god in my eyes. Like he nailed that walk.
Hmm.
Just in that moment, something about that moment made me really enjoy the walk. I was like, yeah.
Well, like I said, the acting in this movie is amazing.
It's so
The
good.
only thing that blows my mind is like you look at like Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix and all them, and you're like, wow, they look so young. Like,
Right. Well, because like they were early 30s, and this is kind of the film that like truly launched their career, right?
yeah. Well, I know for Russell Crowe for sure. That was like my first film where I was like, oh, this is a great actor.
Yeah, yeah. like just truly launched their careers in a different trajectory. But yeah, incredible. I mean, Lucilla agrees, but she's like, "Look, you gotta level with the people." And he says something, and then she says traditions. Do you know what he says?
I don't remember. I watched this part a little earlier, or I think it was like yesterday, 2 days ago when we were
It's
supposed to.
okay. Don't worry about it. Anyway, we gotta follow the traditions, according to the sister. Yeah, fair enough.
Hmm.
Commodus says that Caesar said it himself. War against barbarians achieved nothing. The people always love victories. Why? They didn't see any of the battles. And Lucilla says they care about the greatness of Rome. And just incredibly, he's just like, the greatness of Rome. What is that? It's an idea. Greatness is a vision. Sure. And he just says, do you not see, Lucilla? I will give the people a vision of Rome, and they will love me for it. Soon forget the tedious sermonizing from tired old men. Whew. He's just like, I'm going to give the people what they want. I'm going to give them the victories, and I'm going to win them over. So I appreciate that we have a villain who actually thinks of a plan. Well, okay, half thinks of a plan, but doesn't just break everything down immediately, even though he might want to.
Oh yeah, or I like the buildup of him because I mean I feel like he kills his father a little early in the movie, and I'm all like, I know you're evil, but what's your game? What's your plan?
What's your goal here?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah, yeah. We
what are you
put
trying
together
to?
you were evil when we
Yeah,
met you, but
yeah,
like,
yeah. Yeah, but this kind of broadens his character, which is perfect timing in the movie because it's at like the not the midway point, but like a good
it's
period in.
about like
Yeah,
an hour 20 into this film, maybe.
yeah. So it's like it's at that midway point where it's like, oh, the plot thickens now, and we can actually relate to these characters, and we can see where the sister's coming from, or and where the brother wants to do. You could see the motive why he killed his father, which is like, oh wow, this is getting interesting now.
Yeah, it's things are slowly coming to light, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that. I appreciate that we were kept in the dark. I
Mhm.
appreciate that they didn't feel like they had to tell us all the answers right away. Just like, hi, things will be explained, but
Mhm.
have some patience.
Here's some action.
Here's some action. Here's a little bit of death.
Yep.
Here's a motivational speech.
Yep.
Oh, remember that thing that you forgot about while we were throwing this action in your face? Yeah, 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 we're back.
Mhm. Pretty much.
um,
Remember why we're lined up all outside fighting barbarians? Yeah, we ain't doing that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
This is why.
Yep.
So yeah, um, he takes her hand and he says, "I will give the people the greatest vision of their lives," and then he kisses her hand. Okay, we're back to an empty stadium. It's not empty. That's a model. Who is the person adding to this model? Incredible transition into the stadium after that.
Mhm.
I was very confused about this transition.
Mhm.
Like what?
Now I gotta say, for back then, doing that transition was unheard of.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Eh,
The transition. Cool. Who's the dude adding people into this figurine of a Coliseum stadium thingamabob?
I guess this is just to show that the pieces are coming into play, and I don't know, reference motive, metaphor for you know everything coming together. It's just I feel like it's a throwaway scene, but then again, it's cool to see that transition from the model to the Coliseum.
We're back to the busy streets, and I was like, oh, are we actually at the Coliseum? No, that's just a stadium, and we're here for the gladiator. We see a flyer, pretty much,
Mhm.
and we see a flyer for a gladiatores violentia. I apologize if I mispronounce my Latin. Um,
Dead
but pretty
language.
much what we learn is that Gaius, finds this flyer and he's showing it to Gracchus and he says games, 150 days of games. And Gracchus is just sitting there eating grapes. At least I think it's grapes. But he's just sitting there eating. He's just like, he's more clever than I thought.
He's trying
Doesn't
to
break eating. Love it.
so pretty much this he's trying to entertain the people and to divert them away from, like what they were talking about earlier, like the sewage and all this. This is just
Oh yeah. Yeah,
here,
yeah.
here is a poster. Don't look over here. Don't look over here. Yeah, over here, over here. Look at the games. Look at all the fun. Look at all the
Look
people
at all the
dying.
fun. But like, what I find very interesting is like he that plan that he
Mhm,
had just talked about, we see it going into action.
mhm,
We see that going into action now, and I'm just like, ooh, I'm intrigued. And now it sets us up of now our two worlds can come clash together,
mhm.
and we can have the fighting on three different fronts. It's going to become a triangle, and we'll talk more about that as soon as we get through this scene, because it's a very interesting scene. And
Mhm.
then this is also the last scene that we're talking about in this episode, so we got some time to dig into this.
Right.
But so Gaius isn't happy, and he says the entire Rome would be laughing at him if they weren't so afraid of his praetorship. And Gracchus is just like, fear and wonder, a powerful combination. Gaius asks if he thinks that people will be seduced by it, and Gracchus says that he thinks Commodore knows what Rome is. And again, another beautifully, beautifully delivered monologue right here, where he
Mhm.
just says, it's the mob. Conjure magic for them, and they'll be distracted. Take away their freedom, and they'll still war. The beating heart of Rome is not the mob or the Senate. It's the sand of the Colosseum. Oh boy. Um and just because of like how powerful that is and how the rest of the arc goes of what I have seen so far,
Mhm.
that's actually where we're gonna like end in terms of like where we're going for the movie of this
Right, right, right.
episode. There I have thoughts.
I
But
like how we hit all the good speeches, and there's still more to come.
oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
yeah, there's still more to come. So it's all like the plot thickens, things are getting interesting. Maximus finds a reason to live. Our villain is now being grown, and it's like, oh, this is why he wants to do everything.
Ooh, yeah, and it's we're learning more about the Senate as well. But what I'm intrigued is, you have this triangle of power,
Hmm.
pretty much in this film. That's how this. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of power in this film, and
Yes.
the main triangle is Commodus, the Senate, and Maximus.
Hmm.
And so Commodus has the power in the sense of he is the emperor.
Yes.
The Senate has the power in terms of they speak for the people.
Hmm.
And I feel like Maximus currently doesn't have any power. But this is where Maximus is getting the power, is that he's going to show up to Rome for this 150 days of games, make a name for himself, and the crowd is going to love him.
Well, we saw it at the beginning when he won the fight with when they were chained together. When he won the fight, and he made the big announcement, "Are you not chain?" Like, because again, this is, I feel like it comes easy to him because I mean he's been in war. He's a great general who's fallen. Like, he's starting to become this people's champ almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the true power struggle, where it's like, do you rule with an iron fist, or do you become a man of the people? And then once the people become behind you, and then that's when it gets really scary, because then the Senate is willing to betray you for the people, which gives that nice, like you said earlier, gives a nice little triangle where it's like this champion that we have who's for the people and is fed up of the emperor and is calling the emperor on all the crap, and it's like, okay, well, the Senate has to step in and do something because they are for the people. So
Right. And so that's where I kind of feel like, and I don't know the history of the Roman empires and emperors very well.
the
Um,
major the major one is Julius Caesar.
well, yeah, I know that one.
That's the, if you understand that one, you pretty much understand the main struggle and why Caesar was killed, because he wanted to get rid of the Senate and get rid of, like, I'm just going to expand as far as possible and rule the whole world. And it's all like, no, you have to come back and take care of what's home, because people will riot and go against you, and then that's when the Senate's like, all right, it sucks here, so we're gonna kill you, and then we're gonna put someone else who's gonna listen to us.
Yeah, or like is more for the people and the people
Yeah,
like.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
and so I kind of feel like that's where once Maximus comes into the picture,
mm-hmm.
then it's gonna be a power struggle. But I
Yes,
also don't feel like I feel like it's gonna be a little bit of a mystery
mm-hmm.
to figure out who the Spaniard is. I feel like they're not gonna find out right away on who it is. Like I feel like it's gonna take a little bit. I don't feel like they are gonna find out right away that Maximus is the Spaniard. We'll see how accurate that is in the next episode.
Your hunch is on. Like, no, I know you. I'm going off of you haven't seen the movie. This is your first time, or you haven't seen. Like, let's say this is where you stopped. You're like, I'm gonna put a pause, and I gotta go to work or whatever.
But like that's what I'm thinking at this moment is like, hey, like it's gonna take a little bit, and like I feel like the senators are kind of gonna be like, all right, we got to figure out who this guy is because there's like a different, like he has something here. Like let's go, meet this man.
There's a bigger twist once they figure out who he is, but right now, I'm no spoil. I'm not trying to spoil nothing, but right now, like at the point we're at, like it's a mystery. Who's gonna win? Who's in the right, and what plot is going to be put in place to get rid of the other side?
Exactly, and it's just I feel like the movie is going to end in one of two ways. The Senate is fine. That's non-negotiable. They're okay. Maybe a senator dies. Sure. Senate's pretty much intact because the big power struggle of this film is not with our Senate. They are a very important piece of the power struggle of this film, but they will still exist. And I feel like it is going to go one of two ways. Either one, Maximus gets his revenge, kills Commodus, and then becomes the emperor and is like an incredible emperor, or there is going to be some plot because Commodus isn't going to be able to get rid of Maximus right away because he's going to be the champion for the people, and if he gets rid of the champion for the people, then he loses the people immediately. And so, but he's going to set up some type of plot, and the end of the film is going to be Commodus getting Maximus killed. So I feel like one of these two are going to die. I feel like Maximus is going to succeed. Whether or not it's killing Commodus or getting him to step down, I don't know. But I feel like Maximus is going to be the one to succeed. And I think the Senate's going to play a big role in this. And Lucilla's potentially going to play a big role in overthrowing her own brother.
I am so glad you haven't seen the end of the movie yet, because you're in for a wild ride. you're I know it happens, but I'm not gonna say it. But I'm so glad you haven't seen the end of the movie, because you're in for a wild ride. There's some twists and turns that still are to come, but I love the struggle between Maximus and Commodus and the revenge that Maximus wants for his family, pretty much, because his family was killed.
Yeah.
Even though he feels like they didn't deserve it, But definitely, I like your theories, and I like where your head's at. Just keep this in thought. Watching. Yeah, just keep this in thought, and then once you see when it all comes to the climax, oh man, you're in for a wild ride, dude.
In for a wild ride. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. And thank you so much for joining and jumping on. And thank you so much for also editing all of these episodes and making us sound good. Is there anything you want to share with the people? If they want to, I don't know, doing things, or just share a fun message. I don't know. Do what you want. The floor is yours.
Comment for us being idiots. We do go on tangents. I do love the comments, and I do read them, even though they're not many right now, but I'm always on there looking. You could follow me on Twitch TV /JediAnt, which is very simple. And I will continue editing these videos, and I hope I'll be back here soon.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, you're gonna be back for next week's episode, so
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I'm sure that throughout there will be moments of, hey, I am doing this film. Have you seen this one? Cool.
Yeah.
Come join.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely we'll be back. Definitely we'll be back.
Yeah, for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for watching. Join us again next week. Ant's going to be back as our guest, and the plot thickens. That much I can tell you. And until then, I'll catch y'all later.
Bye.
Bye. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale. Post Finale is created, hosted, and produced by me, Ankit Madira. Our editor is Pranav Nair. The music is by Ankit Madira and Megan Hutcherson, and the art is by Jared Rother. If you are all enjoying this episode and want to gain access to more bonus content, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/coopforge and signing up for any of the tiers. You get loads of different bonus content, such as notes and commentary that we have as we're watching the films, as well as some bonus audio, some bonus videos, and ad-free episodes, early access if we get them done early, and different things like that. All of that can be found at patreon.com/coopforge, and that's patreon.com/co_opforge. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, that's great as well. Tell a friend about the show. Just reach out and be like, hey, you love films, or hey, you need an excuse to watch some more films. Check out the show called Post Finale. The host is an actor, and he's funny and silly, confused most of the time, but they have interesting discussions about some popular films that I think you would really enjoy. It really does help us out a lot. Be sure to talk about us on social media at Post Finale Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also follow us at CoOpForge, that's CO_OPFORGE, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And there we post content not just from Post Finale, but also from the other shows hosted here on CoOpForge, which are Flip the Scripts and Seattle Across the Pond. So a lot of fun things can be found over there on our social media. It really, really does help us out a lot. Thank you to everyone who has already done this. Thank you to everyone who will do this in the future. It really does mean a lot to us, and it helps us create better content for you, the listeners, as we grow. It really does help, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale, and I can't wait until next week. And until then, I'll catch y'all later.